You're Locked On NHL, your daily podcast on the National Hockey League. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
It is time for our bi-weekly Women's Hockey Spotlight. That means we welcome in Erica L. Ayala. Erica, how's it going?
Oh, it's, going well. If I don't think about the Kraken loss last night, I'm great.
All right. Well, the big issue right now, PWHL expansion. This is something I think a lot of people have been waiting for a long time. What is the latest news?
Sure. So Amy Shear has been making rounds at a lot of sports business type conferences. Last week, I got to hear from Amy Shear at the Sportigo conference. She spoke again at an ESPNW summit. And both times, Amy Shear let the audience know that the PWHL is moving forward with not fully expansion, but the expansion process. So I want to break this down a little bit because it's not necessarily something that we're going to see right away, but it is something that the organization is looking to just get some more data on. So per Sportigo, again, that was the conference that I was at, the PWHL is moving forward and they are accepting and are going to go through the RFP process. So RFP is an acronym. It stands for Request for Proposal. So right now, the PWHL is set up as a single entity, and there have been lots of conversations, not just in women's hockey, but throughout sports, whether one singular owner for all teams in a league versus individual ownership is the right move. I think overall, eventually having individual owners is a good thing. But again, this is a league that hasn't yet dropped the puck on their second season. So what the PWHL per Sportigo is hoping to evaluate in the markets is market size and media reach, available facilities and infrastructure, local economic opportunity, and corporate sponsorship leads, as well as community fan base, and youth hockey presence. So the idea here, and I've heard it floated around that maybe by 25, 26, we might see the first news of expansion. That would, of course, be for the next hockey season for the PWHL. But that's where we're at right now. So it is, they have announced that they are starting the process of investigating expansion in earnest.
How many teams do you think they will add in the next round of expansion? And ideally, where do you see the league settling as far as teams are concerned?
Sure, especially since the league is at 6 teams right now, I do think it makes sense to probably expand by about 2. I wouldn't do a singular expansion if they can help it, because then that gives you an odd amount of teams in a small group. I know the WNBA is going to have that in their upcoming season, but also they're at 12 teams right now, going to 13 as opposed to 6 going to 7. So that's a little bit different. It could help with scheduling and whatnot and the like. And for those watching on YouTube, you might have picked up that I am, putting out some good energy in some places. But again, regarding the criteria, I do think that Seattle could be a great area. When you think of hockey, obviously it's a newer hockey market at the pro level with the NHL coming. And now this is the Seattle Kraken's 4th season. But when you think about local and economic opportunity, when you think about community fan base and youth hockey presence, that is through and through in Seattle. I think when you also look at facilities and infrastructure, the Climate Pledge Arena is literally right there. And they have a great practice facility as well. And there are other teams that play at the junior level, which we've seen PWHL teams play in AHL facilities. So that could be something. I also think Pittsburgh. Now, Pittsburgh, I'm not sure hits the mark and fits the brief, Rachel, for all of these areas, 4 areas that have been identified. But it certainly, as you and I know, has been an area that has entertained and actually hosted women's hockey in the past.
Yeah, they have had so many exhibition events there. And The Penguins practice facility in Cranberry has been host to several like PWHPA events. And Pittsburgh does have the advantage, similar to Seattle. I would say that their main arena only has one primary tenant in the Pittsburgh Penguins. They don't have basketball teams in that city. Sorry, Seattle. I know you're still bitter about
Seattle
that.
does have the Storm. That being
That's
said,
true.
they would not
But
be
the
in
off
the
season,
NHL.
though.
They wouldn't be,
Yeah.
or they're not in the hockey season. Yeah.
Correct.
Right.
Correct. So I think that there's that aspect of it. The thing that is the ding on Pittsburgh for me is geography, because I feel like Minnesota, and this was similar in the PHF, is kind of like hanging out there on its own geographically. And so to me, it would make more sense that if there's another US team, it would be closer to that team. And I know like Detroit is the city that has been mentioned. Now, the problem is they do have multiple tenants during the fall winter season in their main arena, in Little Caesars Arena. So I think that is a sticking point there in Detroit, even though they've had an exhibition game there as well, or third location games there. I think it was an official game, but it happened to be in Detroit. So that is kind of the little thing. One of the interesting cities that came up in some of the discussions out there to me is Milwaukee, because Milwaukee has the benefit of being close-ish to Chicago and close-ish to Madison, Wisconsin. Like it's kind of halfway in between the two in a lot of ways. So, and there's a lot of youth hockey in that area, and there's the Bucks, but nothing else in that arena. So I think that would be a very fascinating and out of left field option for them to go with.
Yeah, I think it's also interesting, Gil, that obviously we all live in the United States, but this is a league that has really split the teams equitably, at least the first 6 teams between the United States and Canada. And also, the only national television deal, broadcast deal that they have exists in Canada. So I have to think that there is, if not both teams in expansion early on, that Canada has to be a part of that. Quebec City has been mentioned in a few different articles that I've seen since Amy Shear's announcements at, again, the Sportigo conference and ESPNW conference. I think, though, if you think about some of the cities that we've mentioned, of course, if you go to Seattle, you could maybe get a double bang for your buck, because Seattle, Washington. I know that even on the NHL side of things, fans in Seattle have traveled to Vancouver before the Kraken were around, and then of course Vancouver fans traveling down. I think you could probably see the same thing in like a Buffalo. If you wanted to expand there, you have a team playing in New Jersey. I don't think that's the end of the world, though. We see that in a lot of sports, football, NHL. But I do think, Gil, that we'll probably see expansion to Canada as well as the United States in the next round.
Yeah, I think that is likely. And the other thing is, you brought up Seattle. Unless you go to a Vancouver or another West Coast city, Seattle geographically would be isolated, and travel costs go way up if you do that.
Yep. Yeah, that's true too. And so you'd have to look again at the economic model. From the reporting that I've seen, there's not really any indication of what expansion, the cost for expansion would be. But again, this might have to, if the league wants to benefit and be able to charge expansion fees, I would think, right, they'd have to restructure, because who would they be charging? Themselves? Like they're the sole owners. So if they wanted to be able to have that as a source of income, which we of course know that NHL does that, the WNBA did that in a big way. The price for expansion in the WNBA was sky high this round. So that's another thing to consider. So I guess overall, it does seem like something that the league wants to move forward with. Again, the RFP process has started. I guess what we'll just have to wait and see is if this also means other structural changes for the league, including, of course, everything from travel to the model, the actual model, and sole or singular ownership of a team, as opposed to one ownership group for the entire league. We do want to give a quick update on Erica Howe. She has been a long-time goaltender in women's pro hockey, playing in the CWHL, part of the PWHPA, and of course playing with the Toronto team now. Also is one of a few players that we've seen in women's hockey that also serves as a firefighter. Erica Howe announced recently that since August, she has been dealing with her battle against breast cancer. She was diagnosed with breast cancer. And in a social media post, this one I'm looking at is on Instagram, says, quote, "Please don't send me any 'I'm sorry you have cancer' messages. Love and support is all I need. I consider myself one of the luckiest people on earth. And while I've been dealt a crap hand here, an army of people have shown up for me in ways I couldn't ever imagine. Breast cancer at 32 has been one heck of a ride so far. Not the battle I wanted, but it's the battle I got, and I am learning more about myself than I ever imagined. Cancer is about to meet its match. Fundraiser for cancer research coming soon." So again, we will respect Erica's wishes. I know cancer is something that a lot of people have touch points, myself included. So Erica, and she shares this. Thank you for sharing your message. We support you, and we thank you for also raising awareness. And hey, looking forward to seeing Erica and all of those dealing with cancer of any kind come out on the winning side. So that is a tough update, but the hockey community, as we all know, is just so supportive. And so it's great to hear that Erica feels supported, and I'm sure she will continue to do so now that she has shared what she's going through.
And we certainly wish her all the best in her fight. It's never easy at 32, especially, to be dealing with cancer. So all the best to Erica Howe.
Indeed. Well, it sounds like always more to come. So we have the Women's Hockey Spotlight every other week. So we will do our best to give you all the news that's fit to podcast about here on Locked On NHL Women's Hockey Spotlight. But Rachel and Gil, thanks as always for joining me. And I'll see you in another couple of weeks.
All right. Thanks, Erica.